All right, here we go. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our virtual City of David webinar. We're so pleased that you are with us today. We have a great presentation for you. Today, we are with Pastor Bret Yaeger from Temple Baptist in Dalton, Georgia, and he will tell you a bit about himself and then go on to our guest speaker. Pastor Bret?
Thank you, Amanda. I am excited about today's webinar, and it's a joy to be a part of it. Not only am I the pastor of Temple Baptist Church in Dalton, Georgia, but I also serve on the CUFI. I'm the chairperson for the regional area of North Georgia. We also go in a little bit into Chattanooga. We have a long-time connection with the Jewish Federation of Greater Chattanooga. But I tell you what, I've been excited about today's webinar coming up, and excited about having Ze'ev with us. I got to say that Ze'ev is the Director of International Affairs for the City of David, and I have to say that in my mind, that's got to be one of the coolest jobs, to get to be the Director of International Affairs for the City of David. It's just got to be awesome. And Ze'ev doing that, he interacts with a lot of different people. He works with members of the international media, foreign dignitaries, politicians, works with folks from Hollywood, film producers, actors and actresses, and does a lot of work to help to strengthen and support the City of David. So, Ze'ev, it is great to have you with us today. And I want to make mention, yes. And Ze'ev, for Ze'ev, during the time that he's going to be sharing with us, I want to make mention that you'll see on your screen that there's a chat icon. And if you want to touch that chat icon, you'll have the opportunity where you can put any questions that come to your mind as Ze'ev is sharing with us. And then at the end, we'll try to answer as many questions as we can. So Ze'ev, great to have you with us today.
Awesome. Ready to get started?
We are.
Okay, so I want to start off with a question. I'm going to show you something in a moment with an incredible story behind it. But before I tell you what the story is, when I show you what I'm holding in my hand right now, you could type into the chat box what you think it is. And then once you get a couple of answers, I will share with you what I'm holding and the significance of this thing, not only historically, biblically, but also to the unique time that we're living in right now with COVID. So here it is. What is this? All right, everyone, you can write into the chat box. Amanda, you'll help us out. What am I holding, right? I'll give you a little hint. The hint is it's about 2,000 years old.
Wow.
It is heavy. It's a little bit less than a bowling ball. You can see the size of it. What is this? Right? Type into the chat box, and Amanda, help us out when we get some answers. Tell me what I'm holding.
Somebody said a clay ball.
It's definitely not clay. I can tell you that. This is definitely this is stone. It is round, but what do they do with a round stone of this size and weight 2,000 years ago?
We got a joke here. Somebody said a matzo ball.
You know what? Sometimes, sadly, if you don't make matzo balls right, they more or less get this consistency.
Let's see here. We have from Sodom and Gomorrah, we have fossilized milk ball, grind wheat.
All right, I'm giving one more hint. I want you to think of Jerusalem 2,000 years ago and what something like this could have been used for at the end of Second Temple period Jerusalem. I'll give you one other hint while you're thinking. It's not necessarily a happy story.
Nothing's coming in. What is it, Ze'ev?
All right. So 2,000 years ago, in the year 70, we have something?
Yes.
Amanda?
I
what do we
see
got?
Stone catapult.
There we go.
There
we go. So 2,000 years ago, in the year 70, the Romans, the 10th Roman Legion, destroys Jerusalem, destroys the temple that stood atop the Temple Mount. Now, how did they destroy Jerusalem? We know, of course, people imagine the walls surrounding Jerusalem. You had the temple, which was a massive building. How do you destroy massive stone buildings? How do you destroy massive stone walls and fortifications? How do you attack the many people who are manning the defenses? And so the answer is, in part, what I am holding here. This was a Roman catapult stone, 2,000 years old, that the Romans would have shot at the defenders and the defenses of Jerusalem. Now you can imagine when this is traveling at probably well over 100 miles an hour, the damage not only it would do to a person, but what it would even do to buildings and walls, to the temple. And so this was one of the weapons that the Romans used to destroy Jerusalem in the year 70. Now, like I said, it's not a happy story, but if we want to frame it a little bit differently, one thing that I take comfort in, and it's something we'll revisit a little bit later on in the presentation, is today I'm sitting in Jerusalem in my office, getting to work for the City of David Foundation, and I get to hold this Roman catapult stone from 2,000 years ago, except Jerusalem today is the capital of the Jewish state of Israel. The Romans are not here anymore. They're catapults and catapult stones. So this is all that's left of the Romans in Jerusalem, things like this. But we're back, and there is some comfort in that, we can go through trying periods like we're all going through right now with COVID and such, but it will pass. Better days are ahead, and that's why I take comfort in a discovery like this, that even though at the time it was used for destruction, today we could look back and say, yes, at that time it did destroy, but today we are still here and stronger than ever. Now, what is the link to COVID with this discovery? Now, the story behind it goes a little bit like this. A number of years ago, there was a school group that visited the City of David, about, grade school, 5th, 6th grade. And one of the kids who came as part of the school visit, when they visited one of the excavations, there was a table with a number of antiquities, which is a fancy word for old stuff, on display. And one of the students thought, wouldn't it be funny or clever or whatever if, while nobody's looking, they would steal this? And so that's what they did. They put it into their backpack and went home with it. And they forgot about it. Years go by. Now this person is older, has a family. And it was about a year ago, right before Passover time, a little bit around this time of year, a year ago, he's cleaning his home for Passover.
Pastor Bret?
Yes, Amanda.
Was he frozen on your end?
He is.
Okay. Sorry, folks. We'll get this situated real quick. Let me just get in contact with him.
Our apologies for the technical difficulty right now. Possibly because we're connected all the way to Israel.
Yes. Oh. I'm sure he'll jump back on real soon. He probably had to reset.
Probably so. Somebody's calling for a coffee break.
Yeah. Go grab your coffee.
Start there.
Let me give him a couple of seconds here.
Okay. Hopefully Ze'ev will be back with us very quickly. Just when we're getting drawn into the story about that stone being stolen.
Yes, he's building suspense for us. That's what's happening.
That's right. It's kind of like, about to give you the big information, then go to commercial break.
Yeah. Yes.
Anyway, so that is how we got this back in Jerusalem. 2,000 years after the Romans used it, 15 or so years after it was stolen, everything is in its rightful place. So now, let us talk about what is the City of David. So let me share with you here. Let's open up this presentation. Okay, now, when we talk about the City of David, when we talk about Jerusalem, when we talk about Jerusalem of the Bible, what are we talking about? Now, up until 150 years ago, when people thought, where is the Jerusalem of the Bible? The Jerusalem of David, of Solomon, of Hezekiah, of prophets like Isaiah and Jeremiah, there was one answer. And that answer was the old city of Jerusalem, surrounded by the iconic old city walls. Now, That is the case until 1867. In 1867, Queen Victoria of England wants to discover the treasures of the Bible, such as the Ark of the Covenant. So what does she do? She sends a man by the name of Captain Charles Warren to the Holy Land to find those treasures. Now, if you want to find the treasures of the Bible, where will you go? What city? You'll go to Jerusalem. And if you're going to search one place in Jerusalem to find the treasures of the Bible, where will you go? You will go to, you'll see over here right in the middle, the Temple Mount, the biblical Mount Moriah. This is the site where the Bible tells us of the binding of Isaac that took place in the book of Genesis. This is the spot where you can see over here the golden dome of the rock. The rock that's being referred to is the foundation stone, the center of all creation. And this is the spot where Charles Warren goes, and he wants to excavate, because this is also the spot where we know that the Temple of Solomon was built, the son of King David who built the temple. And that was also the site of the second temple built after the destruction, the Babylonian destruction of First Temple period Jerusalem. So Charles Warren comes and says, this is the place that I want to excavate to find the treasures of the Bible. The only problem is, in 1867, who's controlling the area? The Ottomans, the Muslims. And they say, Charles, we're sure you are a great guy, but you are not going to dig up the Temple Mount. And to this day, due to religious sensitivities and political sensitivities, there has been virtually no archaeological activity on the Temple Mount. So now Charles Warren says, well, if I can't excavate on the Temple Mount, I need to do the next best thing, because I can't return home to the Queen empty-handed. So he says, if I can't excavate on the Temple Mount, I'll do the next best thing, which is to excavate near the Temple Mount. So he comes down the slopes of Mount Moriah, walking through the Kidron Valley just to the east of the Temple Mount. And as he's walking through, he comes across an ancient spring. This is the Gihon spring mentioned in the Bible. Now, this spring, for those of you who have maybe visited the city of David, you've almost certainly walked through this tunnel, which is known as Hezekiah's water tunnel. Charles Warren doesn't know it at the time, but he begins to follow the path of the spring flowing through an ancient man-made tunnel dating back thousands of years. In fact, about 2,700 years. He doesn't realize it, but he begins to walk through the tunnel engineered by the biblical King Hezekiah, direct descendant of King David. And he's walking through this tunnel, curious as to where it will lead. And it's totally dark. He's carrying a torch. And at a certain point, the flame of the torch begins to flicker wildly. And Charles Warren looks above his head and he sees a shaft going up into the mountain. And he's curious, where does the shaft lead? He climbs up the shaft and he finds himself amidst a network of underground tunnels and fortifications with antiquities dating back thousands of years. And he comes up with the theory. And the theory that he comes up with is that everyone thinks that the original biblical city of Jerusalem, the city of David, the place where Jerusalem began, everyone believes it's inside the old city walls. Charles Warren says, I believe everybody is wrong. The question is why? What does Charles Warren seemingly know that nobody else knows? So Charles Warren is saying that the original city of Jerusalem is not up here, but is in fact down here, just south of the Temple Mount. Now, what's the problem? When he announces his theory to the world, scholar and layman alike say, Charles, that is the most ridiculous thing we've ever heard. And for good reason, because this is what Jerusalem looks like. This is what the city of David looks like during the time of Charles Warren. You could see there's not much to see, to the point where they're saying, Charles, it can't be that the city of David, biblical Jerusalem, a place with significance to billions of people, it can't be that it's a barren hillside. It must be the old city of Jerusalem. And Charles Warren says, I'm telling you, this is the place. And over the next 150 years, the city of David becomes one of the most archaeologically excavated sites in the world, the most excavated site in Israel, with British, French, German, Irish, American, and today Israeli archaeologists all digging here and discovering that Charles Warren was in fact correct, that the original biblical city of Jerusalem, the city of David, the place where Jerusalem began is not inside the walls of the old city, but in fact located just outside the walls of the old city, just south of the Temple Mount, adjacent to the western wall. Now, you may then say to me, Ze'ev, well, hold on. When I visited Israel before, or when I dream of visiting Israel, and I dream of going to Jerusalem, I dream of the old city. What do you mean that the city of David is biblical Jerusalem? What about the old city? So the answer is very simple. In this book here, the Bible, this is the original, the Hebrew Bible. In this book here, the vast majority of references in the Bible to Jerusalem are referring to either the Temple Mount or the city of David. Now, what then is the old city? Well, in a word, the old city of Jerusalem is uptown Jerusalem. And to explain that, here is what Jerusalem, the city of David, would have looked like during the time of David. Now you can see to the north, this is Mount Moriah, which doesn't really exist yet. Here to the west is the old city, which also doesn't really exist yet. Now, if we fast forward after David, of course, comes Solomon. Now, what does Solomon build? Here's the city of David. And to the north, you can see the Temple of Solomon built atop Mount Moriah. And over here to the west, again, you can see there is no old city yet. Now, if we fast forward 1,000 years after David and Solomon, then we come to the time period of Herod, or the time period of Jesus. And here you could see, here is the city of David. Here is the Herodian temple 2,000 years ago. And here you can see the contours of more or less what we would call the old city today. It's a little bit expanded in this picture over here, but you could see how 1,000 years after David and Solomon, how Jerusalem expands. And this is more or less what we would call the old city. And the way that Jerusalem expands to get to what it is like here in this image here is because of the water. As we have the technology developing that allows you to bring the water to you instead of you having to go to the water, Jerusalem expands. And that's how Jerusalem starts off. The city of David begins as a small little hill, but eventually becomes what we know here in this picture. And so that is how Jerusalem, the original Jerusalem, is the city of David, but the old city is the expanded uptown version of Jerusalem. So if that makes sense to everyone, if anyone has any questions, you could, if anything's not clear, feel free to jump in now. And if not, I'm going to share with you an incredible story of providence that has led to two of the most significant biblical discoveries in all of Jerusalem's history. And in order to do that, we are going to go to the very southern end of the city of David. So here you can see, here is the Holy Basin, the area, the 1 square mile area in Jerusalem, where virtually every site that makes Jerusalem, Jerusalem, spiritually, historically significant, you can see in this image over here. Now, in the southern end of the city of David, here you can see the city of David just south of the Temple Mount. Just south of the city of David, at the southern end of the city of David, you have over here a road. And beneath the road, there was a sewage pipe. And in 2004, that sewage pipe ruptures. That sewage pipe explodes. And now there was a big mess. And the Jerusalem municipality had to come in and fix the sewage pipe. But Jerusalem is not just another municipality. And the city of David is not just another part of Jerusalem. And here in the city of David, when a sewage pipe bursts, you don't only send in construction crews, you also send in archaeologists. And that's what happens here. You can see the bulldozers and dump trucks doing their work, fixing the sewage pipe, and the archaeologists are supervising. And the archaeologists, they begin to hear scraping and scratching. It doesn't sound right. So they clear everyone out. And it turns out that in repairing the sewage pipe, the construction crews inadvertently had uncovered this set of 2,000-year-old stone steps. And they immediately said, there is only one other set of steps just like these in all of Jerusalem. And these steps might look familiar to you. These are the southern steps leading up to the southern ascent to the Temple Mount, with deep significance to Jews and Christians alike. So the southern steps are right up here. You can see the gates that would have led up into the temple 2,000 years ago. Here are the southern steps. Then the archaeologists wondered, okay, well then if these are the southern steps, what are the steps over here, this down below in the city of David? and they realized they had found the steps leading down to the ancient Pool of Siloam. Now, what is the Pool of Siloam? Of course, the Pool of Siloam, again, significance to Christians, to Jews. In the Christian scriptures, you have the story of the healing of the blind man. Now, the Bible tells us there are 3 times during the year when all of Israel would go on pilgrimage up to the temple. We're talking about Passover. We're talking about the Festival of Weeks or Pentecost. We're talking about tabernacles. Now, of course, before you can go up to the temple, what does one have to do? One has to purify. One has to wash, cleanse, or bathe before they can go up to the temple. Now, the historian Josephus says that 2,000 years ago, say on Passover, which is just another month from now, you would have had nearly 3 million people going on pilgrimage up to the temple. That's a lot of people. The Pool of Siloam was the size of 2 Olympic-sized swimming pools. Why so big? In order to accommodate the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of pilgrims who would have to purify before going up to the temple. So then the archaeologist said, well, wait a minute. If we now know where the Pool of Siloam is, just here at the southern end of the city of David, and we know where the temple stood on the Temple Mount, a half-mile north of the Pool of Siloam, they had a question, which was, how did those hundreds of thousands, if not millions of pilgrims, get from the pool all the way up to the temple? And so they widened the excavation. And what do they find? This is what they find. This is the 2,000-year-old pilgrimage road, or as I like to call it, the biblical super highway. This is the road that our ancestors, yours and mine, Jews and Christians alike, 2,000 years ago, this is the road they would have been walking on when they went on pilgrimage from the Pool of Siloam all the way up to the footsteps of the Temple Mount, the western wall, the southern steps. Now, the road itself, what you're looking at, this is the actual pilgrimage road. It's not a road that looked like that once upon a time or something near here once upon a time. This is the actual road, the actual flagstones. It is today located about 60 feet beneath the surface of the modern day city of David. The road itself is about 5 times wider than what you could see here in this image. What the archaeologists are doing right now is a north-south excavation between the pool and the Temple Mount. And once they complete the north-south excavation, they will then do an east to west expansion. So the goal is in a couple of years' time to have the whole pilgrimage road excavated north to south, connecting the Pool of Siloam with the Temple Mount, with Mount Moriah. Now, along the pilgrimage road, we find something like this. It's the only one of its kind found in Jerusalem, and it's found along the pilgrimage road. Now, does anyone have any guesses as to what this structure might be? Amanda, let me know if anyone has any thoughts. Any thoughts, anybody?
We have a sacrifice slab.
Okay, so you can say it's a sacrificial altar. That is an excellent guess. But of course, during the time of the temple, the only place that people were allowed to bring sacrifices was at the temple itself. So it is definitely not a sacrificial altar. Any other thoughts what it could be?
A place to speak from.
Excellent, excellent. So this could most likely be the original speaker's corner. Imagine 2,000 years ago, somebody had a message they wanted to share with the masses, a religious message, a political message, an ethical message that they wanted to preach. Where would they go? They would go to where the people are. The people were on the pilgrimage road, going down to the Pool of Siloam, going up through the city of David to the temple atop the Temple Mount. This is where the people were. This was the biblical superhighway. If you wanted to reach the masses, this is where you would go. You would get up on this soapbox and you would preach. And if you were interesting, people would stop and listen. And if not, someone else would get up and give it a go. Now, of course, today the pilgrimage road is underground, but imagine 2,000 years ago, this would have been beneath the blue sky. Now, not long ago, I had the pleasure of sharing this with a United States Senator, in fact, one that's not that far from Georgia. And he asks me, he said, what are the chances that Jesus would have walked on the pilgrimage road? I said, listen, Senator, I don't want to tell you stories. Let me give you a conservative estimate. Conservatively speaking, the likelihood that he walked on the pilgrimage road is 100%. He says, how do you know? I said, it's very simple. If you believe there was a historic Jesus, then 2,000 years ago, he was in Jerusalem and he was Jewish. He would have gone to the Pool of Siloam with all the Jews of that time to purify before walking up along the pilgrimage road through the city of David, going up to the temple atop the Temple Mount. Now, the Pool of Siloam that's been discovered in the city of David is 100% the Pool of Siloam. The pilgrimage road that's being excavated as we speak in the city of David is 100% the pilgrimage road from 2,000 years ago. And of course, the Temple Mount is 100% the same Temple Mount from 2,000 years ago. It's not simply a matter of faith, but a matter of fact. It's real. You could see it. You could touch it. And when I think, where in the world can you find a half mile with more significance to more people than the half mile stretching in the city of David from the Pool of Siloam up along the pilgrimage road to the Temple Mount? I believe there is no half mile anywhere in the world with more significance to more people than this half mile here in the city of David. Now, if you think for a moment, maybe some people who are joining us today, maybe you visited the pyramids in Egypt. Maybe you visited the Colosseum in Rome, two of the great wonders of the world. Now, I believe that the pilgrimage road in the city of David belongs in that same conversation, but perhaps even belongs in a category all its own. And I'll tell you why. If one visits the pyramids, you go and you see, wow, look at the might of the pharaohs. Look at what they were able to build. You go to the Colosseum in Rome, you say, look at the grandeur, the power of the great Roman Empire. But where are the pharaohs today? Where is the great Roman Empire today? And the answer is very simple. Museums, history books, with a few monuments left behind. Now, when a person comes to Jerusalem, when a person comes to the city of David, the place where Jerusalem began, and walks along the pilgrimage road, it's not visiting a site of antiquity of, wow, once upon a time there were these ancient Egyptians, or once upon a time there was this great Roman Empire, once upon a time there were these people called Jews, or these people called Christians. It's not that at all. This is not just a piece of history. This is the continuation of a story, because the people who walked on the pilgrimage road thousands of years ago, your ancestors, my ancestors, those are the same people who are going to walk on the pilgrimage road in a few years' time once we complete the excavation. These are the same people worshiping the same God, speaking the same languages, having the same customs, traditions, festivals as our ancestors did thousands of years ago. And where else do you find something like that? And the answer is, you don't. You really don't find something like this anywhere else. This is singular. This is unique. This is, it's biblical. It's magical. The Bible coming to life. And I want to give you an example of how, when you're in the place where the Bible happened, the words of the Bible come to life in a way that's not possible anywhere else. Now, imagine you're in Georgia. I grew up in New Jersey, and I would study the Bible in New Jersey. Imagine you're in Georgia studying the Bible. And it talks about in the Psalms from Psalm 120 to Psalm 134, all the Psalms begin with the words, a song of ascent. Now, what does that mean, a song of ascent? Now, it's very easy to understand that it is a spiritual description of the spiritual experience of going up to Jerusalem, of going up to the temple, the holiest place in the world. But when you're in Jerusalem, when you're in the city of David, the place where Jerusalem began, it means more than just a spiritual experience. Because when you come from the Pool of Siloam and you want to go up to the temple, that half-mile journey, you are going straight uphill. It is literally an ascent. And as you're going on that half-mile ascent up to the temple, what are you singing? You're singing the songs of ascent. It is a very physical, topographical description of the pilgrimage experience up to the temple thousands of years ago. But it's only something you could truly appreciate when you're in the place where the Bible happened. Study the Bible in Georgia, absolutely. But experience the Bible in Jerusalem, in the city of David, where you could literally say, wow, the reason why the Bible is written the way that it is, the reason why it chose those words and not a different description is because it is an actual description of the pilgrimage experience thousands of years ago. Something that you could only truly appreciate when you're in the place where that was happening. And God willing, you will come. I can tell you that even though this excavation won't be open to the public for a few more years' time, I can tell you that groups who have come through CUFI have gotten to visit this excavation because when CUFI comes to Israel, all the doors are open, the red carpet is rolled out. So I'm making an unsolicited plug for whenever CUFI starts their Israel trips again. Highly encourage you traveling with them because you'll get to see places like the Pilgrimage Road. Now, something that was found along the Pilgrimage Road. If you take a look, if you look over here, can anyone tell me what this is that you see embedded into the Pilgrimage Road over here? Any guesses what you see over here?
Somebody said a coin.
Excellent. I like whoever that somebody is. Excellent work. That is a 2,000-year-old coin from the year 66 to 70. The Romans are destroying Jerusalem. There's the period known as the Great Revolt, the Great Jewish Revolt for freedom against the Roman occupation of Jerusalem. And each year, the Jews of Jerusalem were minting coins like the one that you can see over here. Now, the coin that you see in this image was melted onto the flagstones of the Pilgrimage Road in the year 70 in the fires that destroyed Jerusalem. And you can see over here, here's what the coins would have looked like. This is a coin 2,000 years old. And on the coin, you have on one side the year 1, year 2, year 3, or year 4 of the Great Revolt. And on the other side, it says an ancient Hebrew writing for the freedom of Zion, or for the freedom of Jerusalem. You can see here I'm holding a 2,000-year-old coin that says those very same words, for the freedom of Zion, for the freedom of Jerusalem. And scholars have long wondered, why were the Jews at that time minting these coins? Because the coins at that time had no monetary value. And if the Jews wanted to fight the Romans, what should they have done with the metal? Instead of minting a worthless currency, they should have made weapons. So why are they using the metal to mint these coins that have no value? So I want to share with you an answer that I heard, which is that the Jews of Jerusalem at that time understood that Jerusalem was going to be destroyed. But they also understood and believed and hoped and prayed that one day in the future, their descendants would return and find these coins, and they would know what their ancestors lived and died for a free Jerusalem. It was a prayer, a hope, a dream. They couldn't imagine it would take nearly 2,000 years for that prayer to be answered. But eventually it was answered. And today, Jerusalem is the capital of the state of Israel. And it is a place where it is a free Zion, a free Jerusalem, open to people of all faiths and backgrounds. And that is something not to take for granted. It's a blessing that we thank God for every single day. And I want to end with two things. First, this is my daughter, Hodaya. And I took her a couple of years ago to this stone. This stone is at just beneath Robinson's Arch. For those of you who know where that is, in the southwest corner of the Temple Mount. And there's a stone, a 2,000-year-old stone. And you can see on the stone, there is Hebrew writing here. And when I took my daughter to this stone, I asked her, what does this stone say? And she said, Abba, Dad, it says, Lebeit Atkiah, to the trumpeter's house. And I was very proud, thank God, that my daughter could read. But I was even more proud, not just that she could read, but that she was able to read this specific writing. Why? Because how many peoples How many nations could go back more than 2,000 years and read the writing of their ancestors, speak the language of their ancestors, have the same customs and traditions as their ancestors? And I told my daughter, I said, you can say that. The Jewish people can say that. The reason why we are in Jerusalem is not just because of anti-Semitism or persecution or the Holocaust. The reason why we are here is because this is where we have been for thousands of years. The writing on the coins is in Hebrew. The writing on these stones inscriptions is in Hebrew. This is where we've been for thousands of years, and God willing, this is where we're going to be for thousands of years to come, uncovering and sharing our shared biblical roots and heritage here in the city of David in Jerusalem. And I want to end with a video. We had an event back in June of 2019 where we had an event together with the United States of the breakthrough of the lower half of the pilgrimage road. And I want to share with you the remarks that then U.S. Ambassador to Israel, David Friedman, made about the significance of that discovery. And after that, we will open it up for questions.
I'm standing here in the Pool of Siloam, a site rich with significance to Jews and Christians alike, here in the city of David, the historic site of biblical Jerusalem. A short while ago, we celebrated here the historic breakthrough of the ancient 2,000-year-old pilgrimage road that ran from the Pool of Siloam up to the footsteps of the Western Wall, together with a prestigious delegation from the United States, headed by United States Ambassador to Israel, David Friedman.
The discovery of the city of David, one of the great archeological discoveries, certainly of our lifetime, probably of the past century, maybe of the past 2,000 years. The pilgrimage road and the Brechat HaShiloach, the Pool of Siloam, it really enables us to do something which is so hard to do, to go back in time, to go back into history. It brings the Bible to life. So we think as Americans, we think of the origins of our country. Well, we think of the physical origins. Maybe we think of Plymouth Rock. Maybe we'll think of Valley Forge. Those are all physical manifestations of our great birth as a nation. But the spiritual creation, the spiritual underpinnings of our society, the bedrock of our principles in which we honor the dignity of every human life, those words came from Jerusalem. That's an American heritage. This place is as much a heritage of the United States as it is a heritage of Israel.
This road is very special. It brought people together. It was a journey of a lifetime. This was the last part of a fantastic journey, a memorable journey. In fact, a journey that would never be forgotten, of families, people, children, elder people. They gathered in small towns and villages. They came together, and then they began their long trek in convoys up the main roads to Jerusalem. The last lap, the last 600 meters of this journey took place on the pilgrimage road that we are excavating now.
We're standing here at the breakthrough point of the pilgrimage road, where teams of diggers came from the south, from the direction of the Pool of Siloam, and another team of diggers came from the north, and this is the spot where they met in the middle. And as we continue to walk along the road, we can see the beautiful flagstones that will lead from here for the second phase of this project, leading all the way up to the footsteps of the western wall of the Temple Mount. I look forward to sharing the pilgrimage road with you here in the city of David in person. And in case you can't make it, I look forward to meeting with you after the summer to share the significance of this amazing discovery for both our great countries.
Okay, and I am happy to take any questions that there may be.
Yes, there are some questions. That's absolutely amazing. I love hearing about the pilgrimage road. We did have one here. Let me find it in the chat. We had somebody ask if you can mark off or highlight the route for the exact path on the map.
On like a modern image of Jerusalem? Is that what they're asking for?
Yeah, Mr. Yaeger, Michael Yaeger, if you can kind of clarify on that question what part of what map you're speaking of, and then we'll come back to that. And then we have another question. What happened to put this road underground?
So what happens over time, and certainly in the United States you have this just to a lesser extent, but if you were to go in Georgia and dig beneath your homes, I'm guessing that you would come across some maybe Native American remains, and maybe if you dig beneath them, you'd find some other tribal people that was there before them. Now, multiply that by many times over when it comes to Jerusalem. That Jerusalem has been settled for about 4,000 years that we know of. And so what happens is you have a civilization, and then someone comes and conquers that civilization and kind of builds their thing on top. And then someone builds on top of them and builds on top of them and maybe throw in an earthquake or two in between. And over time, you have layer upon layer of civilization that gets built up until something like the pilgrimage road ends up about 60 feet beneath the surface. And that's one of the beautiful things about Jerusalem, but also one of the complexities of Jerusalem, which is how do you preserve and respect the modern while also uncovering the layers of history that are below. And that is always, of course, in Jerusalem, a challenging thing. It gets into politics and faith and environmentalism and cultural issues, but it's also a blessing that we don't take for granted.
Awesome. And yes, he did say the modern map. I saw you put it in the Q&A. So mark off or highlight the route for the pilgrimage road on a map as of today.
Hold on. Let's let me get out of this thing. Okay, let's find a map here for you guys. Here, if we take this, the pilgrimage road loosely will run something like, here's the Western Wall. So if you come down like this, to like down here. So loose, don't hold me to it too exactly, but something like this.
Wow.
Right? And so again, you can see there's a neighborhood above, so everything has to be done with a lot of sensitivity. But yeah, that's where it runs.
Awesome. I have a question from a Miss Debbie Matthews. She's looking forward to visiting Israel in 2022. Can visitors actually amazing? Let's see. I think we had one more in the chat. Is there any excavations of Jebusites that were in this area prior to King David?
So there is a lot discovered in the city of David going back to the time of the Canaanites. It's hard to say specifically Jebusite, but if one takes the Bible's biblical description of what happened in Jerusalem thousands of years ago, we definitely have lots of evidence of the civilization that was there before David. In fact, we know in 2 Samuel chapter 5 how the Jebusites are taunting David. They say, we could put our blind and lame up on our walls and you will not be able to conquer the city. And we have found archaeological evidence of the reason why they were so confident. We both have large portions of the walls going back to the time of the Jebusites, massive fortifications about 7 stories tall from the valley floor all the way up high, and also a 7-story tall fortification, the largest ever found in Israel, dating back some 4,000 years, that if you imagine 4,000 years ago, this was built. King David comes along some 1,000 years later. He wants to conquer a city with massive walls, massive fortresses. The Jebusites were had very, very good reason, based on the archaeological evidence that's been discovered, to have confidence that King David would not be able to conquer the city. The fact that their confidence in the end was unfounded is not because of a lack of the fortifications. Let's just call it, it's a credit to David, to Joab, and of course to God.
Yes. Awesome. And then one last question. What water fed the pool of Siloam?
It largely came from the Gihon spring. The Hezekiah's water tunnel that you may have walked through if you visited the city of David, that was engineered to flow into the pool of Siloam. So the pool of Siloam that we have today goes back to the time of Herod, 2,000 years ago, to the time of Jesus. But the original pool of Siloam that would have been predating the one that we've uncovered today is 7 centuries earlier than that, going back to the time of Hezekiah. And from that time, the water was being fed into the pool from the Gihon spring.
Awesome. Absolutely amazing. Every time I can hear it all day. I hope you all enjoy this. I am going to pass this over to Pastor Bret so we can go ahead and pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And Pastor Bret, just make sure you're unmuted and we'll go ahead and we'll end this webinar.
All right. Thank you, Amanda. You did a great job hosting. And Ze'ev, excellent presentation. There is no doubt why you are the right man to be the Director of International Affairs of the City of David. I know that part of your main focus is to make people aware, but also strength and support for it. And your knowledge and your passion is just amazing. And look forward to having another webinar with you sometime in the near future. I know you can bring some more enlightenment to us. And I would love to pray for your work there, pray for Jerusalem as well. Before I do that, in closing, I do want to remind folks that if you register for this webinar, you will get a link that you can share with other folks, and we hope you'll do that. That way they'll be excited to looking forward to the next webinar that we do. But again, Amanda, great job. Ze'ev, fantastic. And let me just pray for Jerusalem, pray for Israel as well. Heavenly Father, we come to you today just with great excitement in our heart. Lord, I am always just rejuvenated about your land and your people when I see presentations like Ze'ev did today. And Lord, I'm reminded how important it is that we look back to your word, and it tells us that those who bless your people and your land, you will bless, and those who curse your people and your land, you will curse. And Lord, I just want to be one of those that is always bringing blessings and support for Israel and Jerusalem, and folks like Ze'ev, who have such a passion for the heritage there and have such a passion to present to others and to enlighten them and educate them. So Lord, I pray that you would just bless Ze'ev's ministry and Lord, his work there. And Lord, I pray that you just give them more insight of things that they can share with people to bring the truth to reality. Just like Ze'ev said, this is not about faith, but it's about facts. And that fact just increases our faith. So Lord, we pray that you would just bring strength to him and the work that he's doing. We pray that you would just bless your people and your land. And we look forward to being enlightened with more things that are discovered. And it's in your holy name we pray. Amen.
Awesome. Thank you all. I pray you all have a wonderful day. Ze'ev, until next time, thank you all.
Thank you.